What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi back with my man Eric Sheets Haber. Happy Monday, and we are talking about MLB baseball today. It's just going to be a lot less stressful, I think, than the NBA, so that's kind of nice. But we got a big slate to get through, Sheets. Any initial thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm really enjoying baseball DFS, and because I think
Finally,
the way what's that?
Finally.
Well, I'm enjoying the process of it because I what I'm enjoying doing is combining. You know, I'm identifying what I want on the low-owned side, combining it with what I want on the chalkier side, and it's a pretty nice streamlined way of going about it. What I'd like to do more of is tailoring that kind of combinations to the various contests I'm playing. Because what I find I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, I'm going to take kind of a chalkier pitcher, pair with low-owned guy, whatever, and a medium with a medium, and I'm not really separating. Okay, well, which of these lineups is good for the the 150 max type of tournament versus which type of lineup is better for these single entries. And obviously, there's a huge difference. So I could definitely be a little bit better when it comes to that type of lineup construction. So I'm going to focus at least my own game on a little bit more of that, and hopefully I could try to convey that as I'm going over these slate reviews.
Nice, yeah. I think that's a good way to go about it. I also think it's been helping me too to do the game by game. So we'll do that. If you don't mind calling up your screen and we can start just talking about game by game.
Absolutely.
All right.
But overall, I think it's pretty fair slate. I think it's pretty, I don't want to say straightforward in the wrong way, but there are places you could go that are obvious, and then there's a whole bunch of different choices you can make with respect to your secondary stacks, your secondary hitters and stuff. And I think you could end up getting some low-owned shots in there.
Yeah.
And we'll see where we come up. Now again, don't pay attention to this lineup. This was made last night, although this might not be the worst thing in the world either. So
no, I like parts of that.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to start with Washington. No, we're going to start here with Chicago and Detroit. So already I have a little bit of I don't want to say an issue. Actually, it's not as bad. I thought I was going to be getting to a lot more of Dallas Keuchel than I might be. So I was going to really struggle over whether to play him or not. As it turns out, I don't think I'm going to get to as much of him as I thought. Yep. Anyway, so I'm probably not going to be playing him. What I might be playing is, again, and this is just on the hitting side, I might play some of the White Sox, but I think might be a little bit too popular for what I want to do with them. But they certainly are in a decent spot. So I may as well just kind of highlight the White Sox that I like because I am probably going to throw something in there. I do like Robert, presuming hitting leadoff, Moncada, Encarnacion. I like Jimenez, Lazara. Even you could probably play this up and down. And this guy, they keep putting him in the lineup, and he's still 2,000 and 2,100. This Danny Mednick, not the worst player in the world, I suppose, if you're gonna stack them. But so that's where I'm at. I'll play White Sox a little bit. Again, I kind of looked at them as kind of like a mid-range ownership type of play. Not too chalky, not too whatever, but they're not the best play either. You know what I mean? So
right.
I probably play them along with kind of similarly like kind of mid-owned pitchers also. So what do you think of Keuchel? What do you think about any of this game? So
I think Keuchel is initially. I sort of like you. I sort of thought I was going to maybe have some interest. I'm still moderately interested. Detroit's lineup still doesn't entirely scare me. I think there's some Ks in that lineup. It's hard for me with him, man. It's just there's pitchers with so much more upside. I feel like in general. The last time, it was against Milwaukee, who strikes out all the time, but we saw a nice, 8 strikeouts in 7 innings, which was a great game for Keuchel. He's got upside. He's cheap enough, and we're going to want to get into some expensive bats, so I'm okay with him, but I think we're going to find better pitching options overall. I really like some of the White Sox back. I think I'll definitely, let's say I was playing, 150 lineups, I would probably put 10 to 15%. I would consider a White Sox stack, but if they're going to be a little bit popular, I don't think it's going to be crazy. I don't entirely love the full stack because it's sort of a bullpen game. So you got Fulmer, who's okay for a couple innings. Then you got Norris, who's okay. you know, so it's not my favorite thing, but knowing that a lefty's coming in is going to make me want to prioritize a guy like Abreu, even though he's expensive. So he'd be the one I'd have the most interest in. I also have interest in Moncada, switch hitter, obviously, but historically he's gone back and forth, had good power numbers. Then he's struggled from the right-hand side and struck out like a million times in a row, but he's gotten better. So I think those two are the priority, along with Mazzara, even though it's going to be lefty-lefty part. He's just 3.3. So I like getting him in, and then you get in some Robert. Those are the most of the guys I'm looking at. But you can mix in a Grandal or a McCann if you want to go the other way with the catcher. You know, you could play Eloy Jimenez. I'm okay with any of those guys. I just there's other stacks I like better, but it's one of the stacks that's on my list. And like I said, 10 to 15% may not sound like much, but if you're going to say, have 1 out of 7 lineups basically with a White Sox stack, that's actually a fair bit if you on this slate. So that's about what I'd be looking at right now.
We're going to go back at the end and talk about, favorite one-offs and values and stuff. Last time I did that, remember we got CJ Krohn as like my favorite like value play, and I thought he'd be like huge chalk, and he hit a home run at like
5%,
like 5% somehow. So yeah. I'm going to throw him in. By the way, it's just another $3,100 guy. We'll get back to these, but I still think Kristen Stewart's probably a decent one-off at 2,200. Obviously, the matchup's not the greatest. But,
worry about him a little bit because he's been pinch hit for a couple times against lefties.
Okay.
And so if there is a righty starting, pitching a couple innings, and a lefty coming, just be careful a little bit with that one.
Well, Keuchel starting. I mean, like if he starts against Keuchel.
Oh, if he's starting. I'm sorry, he's starting against Keuchel. No, he'd probably be batting at the bottom of the order. I don't think I can play him as a one-off, but I understand he's cheap. They're all cheap.
Right.
So anybody has a one-off on Detroit that has some power. I would lean the other way. I wouldn't probably play him quite as much. I think I would probably be more – I think Scope would be the number one guy for me on that side, and then it would be Krohn. That's pretty much the guys I would look at.
Okay. All right, so
Lario, I guess if you need 2,400, he is really, really cheap.
Who?
Candelario. He's 2,400. I mean, it's
and he's like an actual baseball player. I mean,
yeah, and so is Stewart, and that was your point, kind of. I get it. It's just feels weird on this slate, but they are really cheap.
And as you may not have seen over the weekend, you probably did, but offensive juggernauts Detroit and Pittsburgh put up 30 runs.
Oh, I know. I saw that. I did. I had Detroit on the wrong day, unfortunately, when they were projected to be like 10% owned or less as a stack, and they were like 45% owned as a stack.
Well, and 4 hours before the big, they scored all those runs, I had Matt Boyd starting that game. And so
oh, man. I had Boyd that one, too.
All right, you want to go ahead to Washington Mets?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we get to what is, for me, at least on DraftKings, one of my top 2 pitchers on the slate in Patrick Corbin. It's certainly not going to be anything special with respect to ownership. I'm sure everybody's going to play him, but he's got everything. He's got strikeout upside. He's look, the matchup's not the greatest, whatever, but given the pitching options today, I think that he's one of my top 2 favorites. With that said, I'm really not. I've been playing the Mets a decent amount. Actually, I had him decently yesterday. Actually, they couldn't quite. Yeah, Alonso hit into a double play with the bases loaded, with 1 out, which is like kind of annoying. But so I'm not going to go for Mets hedge stack today, although I can certainly see it. I'm just going to probably just play Corbin, not really play any of the bats from either team, actually, because with Steven Matz, I think I've come to the grips that Steven Matz, although I don't really like to play him, don't really like to play against him either. So I usually just kind of stay away from the whole situation. So for me, it's going to be Corbin is probably my top pitcher, and probably nobody else in this game.
Yeah, I like Corbin quite a bit. Always, I do think there's always some risk. You're gonna run into some power against him. So I always recommend taking some of the power shots against my pitcher if they're that kind of pitcher, and I'm going to be using a lot of them. So I am. So I like Corbin. He's one of my top pitchers on the slate. I think right now I have him as my tied for my highest owned. But I also do think, again, there's definitely some power risk with some of the bats in the lineup. I do like that they're going to be throwing a lot of lefties out there, possibly. So on the hitting side, I actually do have like a little bit of interest. I don't really want to stack, but Castro's like 3.5. I think he's interesting at second base, batting third. Adam Eaton, even in a lefty-lefty at 3.5 is moderate, is like okay. I sort of like the pricing more than I like some of the plays maybe, but I do like Kendrick a lot. and I like Turner and Soto fine. Soto's lefty, but so it's not a priority. But I guess it would be Kendrick and Turner would be the priority guys for me here. I do think Kendrick is really. I mean, he's really hitting lefties. His hard contact rate is incredible. Turner has both stolen base and power upside in this one. So those would be the guys I would focus in on that side. And then for your power one-off, I think it's pretty much going to be Alonso. Wilson Ramos is really cheap at catcher, connect. And then I think that you can play either J.D. Davis or Michael Conforto really cheap, but I don't want to get into a full stack.
So I've talked about probably 5 different shows my experience with playing Patrick Corbin against the Mets. Didn't get out of the first inning last time I tried this last year, but I'll go back to it. I'm telling you, I'm looking at this Mets lineup. What happened? If this lineup is even remotely close, we got Billy Hamilton's playing and Brian Dozier pulling him out of wherever the hell he's from, and no more Cespedes. And Alonso's tough or whatever, but I'm worried about Conforto as a lefty versus Corbin. I don't know. Corbin looks really. He's gonna have to work hard to get get lit up in this game. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Conforto has gotten better against lefties. McNeil's it can hit lefties, so we'll see. But I agree that the lineup does look like it favors him. All right, ready to get to the next one?
Yep. Okay, so Tampa and Boston. Again, I was originally thinking. Again, I don't know why I'm even saying this, but I was originally thinking that I was going to end up not having to play, but maybe getting to Yarborough. But it turns out I'm not. As a matter of fact, the only interest I really have in this game is maybe kind of Tampa on the hitting side, but they're going to be chalky. I don't know if I'm too interested in a chalky Tampa Bay stack, even against maybe kind of fishy pitching. So for me, I don't know. This whole game to me seems like kind of a stay away. I'm not sure. At least that's where I came up with it first look.
I think Tampa's lineup is greatly improved with Meadows back in there now. I like the lineup. It's hard. So I like the lineup better than I did. I think that I do have some interest in some of their guys, and I know that there's going to be some ownership. I don't think it's going to get out of control entirely. The guys who I would have the most interest in, Brandon Lau.
Yep.
I like Austin Meadows, but outfield and 5,500 is a little bit steep, but I think that maybe you could throw him into a lineup or two. Jose Martinez is sort of fine. I don't like his power as much, but Hunter Renfroe at 3.6 is really cheap. So is Brousseau at 3.6. So I like those guys a little bit. So that would be sort of the guys who I would prioritize if I was going to get anybody in. And Yandy Diaz leading off is pretty cheap. So I have some interest in all those guys. Again, not my favorite stack, but I do like it. Again, but I'm mostly going to pick a couple of those bats.
Boston, if Kevin Pillar is actually leading off at 3K, he's kind of, you kind of have to play him, though. You don't have to play him, but it's certainly going to be a strong value, isn't it?
Yeah, but Yarborough's good. I personally think Verdugo is a better hitter and is hit better against lefties, so I'd rather play him at lower ownership later. But I'm playing both of them. I'll play a little bit of both of them. Again, not going to fully stack here, but I don't mind a little two-man. It'll probably be paired with J.D. Martinez or Christian Vasquez with either Verdugo or Pillar. I'm not going to use 2 of my outfield spots on this game unless I use J.D., so I'm not going to play Verdugo and Pillar together.
Okay.
Okay.
So Minnesota and Milwaukee. I don't know where ownership is, but I'm not getting to either of these pitchers. I'm not too interested in them, and I don't know. I thought that I was, again, maybe I should play him anyway. I thought I was going to be into Minnesota a little bit more than I was, more than I am. I guess I have to consider him on every slate, but I don't know. I thought I had better options today, but I guess Minnesota's always in play. Kepler against the righty is always in play. Dude, I can't believe how owned he was the other day or yesterday or whatever.
Oh,
it was.
no.
30% owned or something like that.
Yeah.
In a baseball game. You know what I mean? That's tough, man. It's tough to be 30% owned as a hitter in a baseball game, as opposed to a hitter in a soccer match. So I didn't really get to Minnesota, although maybe I should. And Milwaukee, I originally really, really liked them, and then I'm starting to turn on other teams and stuff. I think I want to go back to them for like a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I can get against a righty, I can get Logan Morrison at 3,100 for openers. I can get Yelich, and then the rest of it, you got to deal with Smoke. Smoke's fine though. Gamble, maybe he gets decent lineup position. I don't know, as a lefty. I can go back to Omar Narvaez, who's finally priced somewhat reasonably. Maybe this team's in play here. I don't know. I mean, a couple of games ago, I made fun of Dobnak, and I attacked him really hard, and he just shut me down for like
got everybody down so far.
6 straight innings or something like that. But I don't know. I have a feeling both these teams are in play today.
I mean, sure. Like, I don't see the reason why to focus on an 8.5 total that clearly has missed projections on the pitchers. These are good pitchers, or pitchers who have been effective anyway. Yeah. And while I'm more than happy to always take a shot, the bullpen of Milwaukee combined with Hauser's ability to get easy outs and keep the ball on the ground doesn't have me very excited. So I'm not very into the bats here. I will play a few. I will always play Kepler against a righty. I'll actually play Kepler against lefty these days. He's just too hot. So Kepler would be the priority play. Nelson Cruz is really expensive, so will be a low owned. If you want to mix in Polanco or Rosario, I'm good with all those guys. If you're going to stack it, I'm going to say the same thing every time. And it's usually going to be to get away from chalk, but it also has to do with upside as a player. Byron Buxton is a better fantasy player than a number 9 hitter. And it sort of shouldn't be treated as a number 9 hitter. I know he does, you lose some at bats or whatever, but he's still going to get 4 at bats a game on this team. He's hit a home run in 3 of the last 4 games. He can steal bases. He's going to always be there at the end of the game if he starts the game because he's the best defensive player on their team. I just think that he's the guy you want to start including in your stacks. He's got good pop, and I think he's coming along. So if you're going to do the Minnesota stack thing, I think I would include Buxton. I probably will only get to maybe 1 or 2 really low buy-in, large field Minnesota stacks today, but I will include Buxton in those.
Okay, so I am literally the nut low, and I'm going to tell you why. So this is not the first time that you've suggested, you don't maybe remember this. This is not the first time you suggested Byron Buxton in these Minnesota stacks. And I will tell you that, and again, part of life is fessing up and just admitting your faults and whatever it is. I have stacked Minnesota in the last 4 games, and each one of them, you said, make sure you use Buxton or towards that effect, and I used him in 0 of them. And he hit home runs in 3 of the 4 games. So it's not like you're coming in right now and saying, oh, by the way, you should play Buxton. You've been saying Buxton literally for the last week. So, I am not leaving him out of any Minnesota stacks until further notice.
Yeah, and it always, part of it, what's funny is he's always going to be low owned no matter what, because everybody's always, if they're going to play the Minnesota stack, they're going to probably play 2 of Cruz, Kepler, and Rosario, or all 3. And almost never is Buxton going to be in that mix. And then you've got other outfielders it's a loaded position. So anyway, it really works out for him just to always be low owned.
All right. So what I would like to do, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like you to tell me your take on the Arizona-Colorado game before I do it, because I am I don't want to say thoroughly confused, but I'm thoroughly confused with my take. So I'd like for you to start with the Arizona-Colorado game.
So I will definitely be overweight on exposure to Robbie Ray, and I'll probably be over the field on John Gray because I don't think anybody's going to play him. But I'm going to take shots on these guys, especially Robbie Ray. The strikeout percentage is way too high. While they've been good against lefties at home historically, these are the same guys that have really their K rate versus lefties is really high. And I'm just going to pull up real quick while we're doing this. Robbie Ray's, he's faced this team a million times. They're in the same division. So you've got 180 plate appearances. In those 180 plate appearances, 53 strikeouts. So you're looking at a 30%, 27% strikeout rate. The odd part about what happens with him that people don't realize is, like, for some reason, like, Charlie Blackmon completely owns him. He's 20 for 46 with 5 home runs. That's a pretty absurd line. And you wouldn't think it lefty. So he's the guy I would prioritize as actually playing. Whereas Story and Arenado in a lot of at-bats have actually been good also, but not as good. And so I would actually play Robbie Ray. He's going to be in like 20% of my lineups. I'm just going to take that shot. I don't need to. I'm just going to take the two highest upside guys, the former, both from the same team, and I'm going to play him alongside of my other lefty in Washington. And I think that I'm just going to try and play some upside lineups. I don't know if I'm going to do it my biggest buy-in lineups, but I am definitely going to take some shots. Now, they've hit him well, even though they strike out a lot against him. And this is not as patient of a team as the Dodgers are, so I'm not as worried about him getting – like last time I was pretty adamant that I could see him having a good outing against the Dodgers, but I also thought they're just too patient. He's gonna blow up at some point against that kind of a team. He ended up walking 6 4 2/3, and then his last time out he had to face Houston. Those are tough matchups. This is a much better matchup than he's actually had so far, even including the Padres. So he's actually kind of getting the best matchup he's had, and because it's in Colorado is really the only problem with it. I know that's a big problem, but there's no reason he couldn't, give up 3 runs and strike out 10 in 6 innings. Like he has that in him. So that's my take is we want some bats from Colorado, but we definitely want to have some stacks of Colorado for sure. But we want some Robbie Ray also.
And what do you think of the bats from Arizona?
The bats for Arizona, they're really priced at the point where I think they're going to be really popular. But I think trying not to full stack is kind of hard once you start playing 1 or 2 of them, because it's sort of the lineup that lends itself better to a stack than as one-offs. But I do like Escobar and Calhoun would be my preferred plays. They're going to be the most popular, I would imagine, as well because their price. Marte, both Martes, I like. I will have 10% exposure to probably everybody in this lineup except for Nick Ahmed, and it'll probably be 15 to 20% on most guys. David Peralta, I like. But again, I don't mind taking a shot or 2 with John Gray.
All right, so this is my opinion because when I first looked at these salaries and looked at whatever, I was a little shocked. So the first thing I noticed, and again, this is part of where you analyze a lot of things in life, right? So I remember last week that Brandon Belt and Mike Yastrzemski and whatever other idiot burgers was coming in from San Francisco were like 5,500, okay? And I'm looking at these Arizona guys, and I'm like, this is a joke, right? I mean, David Peralta's at 3,900 and
crazy,
like all these guys, and I'm like, this can't be right, and they're going to be like just such a huge chalk. I mean, how do you not play all these guys? And then I wake up, I look at some ownership projections, and they're not even like consider the top stack. I mean, like the Colorado is more popular. And to me, I have no idea what's going on. And then I made the mistake of listening to something else saying that John Gray has been just basically not as good with his metrics and he's throwing the ball over the plate more. Yeah, and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I hate playing Coors games. I hate playing the road teams just because they're so hugely popular. But I mean, if they're not going to be popular, it's just ridiculous. So, I'm going to presume that they're going to be popular. There's just no possible way they're not, given the prices. But I don't see any reason to not play them. The other comment I have on this game is what you said is really, really – okay, so playing Robbie Ray, I make him, like, in general, my probably my fourth favorite on FanDuel and probably tied for 3rd and 4th on DraftKings. But consider – this is really important. Considering that Colorado is going to be a popular stack, it just makes it so much more DFS efficient to play Robbie Ray. You know what I mean? Because you get that natural leverage off of popular hitters. Now they're in there. I'm not saying that they're bad plays like you said. I mean, you could play some Colorado guys. I mean, play, Arenado and Story against the lefty at home. I mean, like, we know what they can do. But I don't know. The rest of the lineup doesn't scare me all that much, if you want to know the truth.
Well, I did just mention the thing about Blackmon. Like, that's a real number. Like, that's a lot of it. But Blackmon's not going to be that popular.
Right. Well, because of the lefty.
Lefty at 5.8K and popular in a tough outfield position. I just don't see. And even Arenado and Story at 6.3, they may be the popular stack, but I don't know people are really going to try and put those guys in there.
But again, I think from a DFS just like theory perspective, I think it's really important to understand why that Robbie Ray is a good play. You know what I mean? Like he's a good play in and of itself, but because the Colorado guys are chalky also, it just makes it a double good play. So I'm going to play him more than I would have otherwise, just because of that situation.
Right. So here's my John Gray quick thing, though, that maybe counters a little bit of that, I think, with the Arizona bats. It is bizarre what they did. It is a mistake. I'm guessing that by the end of the day, people are going to play Arizona because of this. Right. Now, I'm going to point out something else about it. As bad as we say John Gray has been, he's given up only 1 home run in 3 starts so far this year. He has got his last 2 starts, he hasn't walked a batter. He had a 1-hitter going into the 7th inning of his last start in Colorado. I don't think that we should treat this guy like all of a sudden that he's some sort of gas can. And another problem is you really want guys who walk. You want to keep those lines moving. And not to say John Gray can get a little bit wild at times, but it's not like Robbie Ray, who literally might go walk 6 of the first 8 batters. Like, that kind of stuff happens with him pretty regularly. And John Gray doesn't do that as much, and I think limits enough damage to where he's become a more efficient pitcher than he has become like a high upside pitcher. His strikeouts are going to be down. He's not going to be as good for DFS, but he's going to be able to limit the damage, I think, enough more often than not, where picking on him is going to be right sometimes, but it's not going to be right the percentage of the time that it gets played. That's my take, especially in this spot where they're too cheap. And by the way, obviously, that we did spend some time on that game, but that is the most important game on the day, as always. Anytime there's a game in Colorado, it's going to be the most important game to get right.
I got nowhere to be. We can finish this. We can go slow. We got some good games still left to go.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go on to speaking of which, let's go on to Seattle, Texas. So, okay, let's pull up these pictures.
Okay.
All right, I have a couple of just takes on this game. I probably should have no business with these takes, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So Gibson, I think he's going to end up being somewhat popular. I'm not going to play him. Mm-hmm. He's just, I just like 2 other guys a little bit better. So I don't think I'm going to get to him, although, I could certainly see why people would play him. And these Texas games are not exactly big hitters parks anymore anyway, so I could see the argument for it. I don't know if I'm going to, he's probably my 5th favorite. I regard him kind of like Steven Matz as far as my tiers go on DraftKings. The other like really bizarre take is, and again, this is from me watching him. Justin Dunn is not that bad. I don't know if I'm going to need a $5,100 pitcher, and he certainly doesn't project like to be really good or whatever. But I don't know. Again, it's a dumb take, but I just happened to watch him pitch like 2 games against the Angels because I was basically stacking against him in both those games, and he's not bad. He's got some decent stuff, and against in a kind of what's become kind of a pitcher's park against a team that hasn't really done all that much. I don't know. In a big field GPP, I'm just going to tell you guys, I am sprinkling a little bit of him in there. And yet on the other side, Texas is coming up also as one of, I don't want to say chalky, but one of the, let's say chalkier of the mid-tier stacks, I should say. And, they're fine, but I don't think I'm going to get to them. I think at the very least, I'm going to back up my Justin Dunn opinion by not stacking Texas. And I might actually sprinkle a little bit of him in. But that's pretty much where I'm at in this game.
Yeah, I kind of like Gibson. I don't have any interest in Dunn tonight. I need to see a guy pitch 5 innings before I start him on a full slate. Yeah. Or at least know that he can pitch 5 innings.
Yeah, I got you.
And I think Dunn has some stuff, but he has been the guy to those were good stacks against him. He only lasted 3 and 4 innings. He ended up with a bunch of walks and kept the line moving and gave up 3 home runs in those 2 games. So I actually think that if I like Texas better in general, I would want to have some more exposure. But I think for me, it's just going to be Gallo and Odor. Okay. I really like Joey Gallo though. I would try to make him one of the priority guys I would stand up for. He's one of the best power, one of the most likely guys to hit home runs tonight, in my opinion. So him and Odor, but definitely more on Gallo.
All right, we don't need to spend any more time on that game, right? Do you like anybody? Do you like Gibson a little bit?
Yeah, I like Gibson. I'll have like probably 30% of them.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go on to the next game because then I'm going to ask you, who you like more, Gibson or the guy from this next game. So, McCullers is my 2nd favorite pitcher of the day on DraftKings, and I'm sure he's going to be wicked popular also, as he was in the last game when he busted pretty hard.
Don't be totally sure. We'll talk about it. Keep going.
Okay. As he was in his last game when I played him in 40% of my lineups, and I don't know if he made it out of the 4th inning. So I do like him against San Francisco. And I do actually like some Houston bats here against San Francisco, against Logan Webb. And again, this is going to be, again, probably they're not going to be the chalkiest of the stacks, right? It's not going to be like Arizona and Colorado, but they'll be owned. So again, if I play Houston, I'll probably, I don't want to pair them with other chalky builds, I think. But I do like Houston. I like the pitcher, and I certainly like the hitter. And we could talk about the hitters. And I guess my favorite of the hitters would be, Gurriel's pretty cheap. Correa, Reddick. I mean, just everybody. Bregman. I know he's a righty, but whatever. Most of the power's right-handed, but I think they're fine. Miles
Gurriel's like my stack only guy. Him and Marwin Gonzalez, I just don't ever play outside of stacks.
And Marwin Gonzalez, those two guys, huh?
They have no power, and they bat in the middle of an order, so they only make sense in stacks. They have less power than like anybody else we would ever consider playing.
You're hating on Marwin Gonzalez, oh my goodness.
The guy who hit 195 last year with 8 home runs.
No, he hit a home run 2 days ago. Good grief.
No, he's still like a 190 hitter. The point is that you play him in stacks, though. That's what I'm saying. And even then, it was right to play him in the stack because the stack had a good night. But I wouldn't play Gurriel as a one-off. But
what do you think of McCullers? What do you think of this game?
So, I'm worried about McCullers, genuinely. Okay. He looks terrible to me, and he's actually looked bad every start. But I was willing to overlook it because he's just a good enough pitcher where I thought he was just kind of just feeling himself out. But he's throwing the ball over the plate, and they are making hard contact consistently against him. The walks weren't even up in the last game, but they were in the 2 previous games to that. And the Ks are down. It just doesn't feel great, but it is the Giants, so I'm going to have a good amount of exposure to him, and counting on that he's a better pitcher than what he's shown so far. Man, I don't feel great about it though. I feel worried about watching him pitch. I just also could easily see him struggle, like not pitching well and get through 7 innings clean or 6 innings clean tonight against the Giants. So his pitch counts keeps getting up. He's been ugly, but I'm going to still end up with probably more of him than Gibson, which is crazy. But
that's what I was going to ask you, if you liked him.
They're close. So, but more likely, maybe I play those guys together a little bit, or I throw. I don't know. I don't know exactly how I'm going to work it out, but I do think that you can play them together if you want to get a little bit of savings off of Corbin. And also Corbin, there's always some risk too with him, but on the Houston side, it's interesting because I've been saying this about, Webb actually looks good to me every time I see him pitch. He's had some really tough matchups. He had to pitch in Colorado, pitched great. He had to pitch in LA. That was tough, and he did well. Not putting up numbers, but just enough to where I don't necessarily want to go crazy against him. And I want to remind everybody, the Giants have more lefties in their bullpen than any team in baseball.
You mentioned that.
Here you go. So if you're going to play guys, just have that in mind. Now, I don't think that they have enough guys where they're going to start I think they're going to play Kyle Tucker and keep him there, even if a lefty comes in potentially. So I love Kyle Tucker in this game. He's my preferred play on Houston. Everybody else is so priced up, except for I'm fine with Correa, and everybody else would be parts of stacks for me pretty much. But I don't mind getting like one share of a 10% stack or something like that. Maybe I don't feel as in love with it tonight, but I'm okay with it. It's just one of those 10%ers for me.
Okay, so San Diego, LA, for me is very intriguing. So I don't know. Again, I don't know exactly where ownership is going to come in. What ownership are you going to expect on Dustin May?
I don't think it'll be that much, but maybe people will talk him up as the day goes on. It's always interesting how it goes, the back-to-back matchups versus the same team when you just dominated them. So I don't know how. It's an interesting situation.
I mean, for me, I'll play him over Gibson.
Yeah, I have no problem with playing him over Gibson or McCullers.
Yeah, so he's actually my rank. He's tied with, again, this is just raw, whatever. He's tied with Robbie Ray as my third best favorite pitcher. Robbie Ray, I give it, an upside to because of the leverage factor
and also you give upside on, but Dustin May has a lot of strikeout upside too.
Yeah. So I do like him a lot, and I don't know where these the ownership's going to play. But again, they're not looking to be one of the highest owned stacks. But crap, Dodgers against the righty. I mean, I got no problem throwing that in.
This will probably be my. Hold on, let's find out something. Hey Google, what will the temperature in Los Angeles be tonight at 6:40 p.m.?
It's going to be hot because Jock Peterson's leading off.
6 p.m. Expected temperature of 74 degrees.
That's warm enough for me.
There you go. Alexa is giving out the Dodgers.
I'm into the Dodgers a lot tonight. Perdomo, absolutely nothing to fear here. I'm not as in love with the lineup that they're throwing out, the bottom of it as much. But I think that it's a stack where I want to be overweight on the guys up near the top, especially. Justin Turner would probably be the least of those guys. The one who I would have the most interested would be Bellinger. Muncy would be after him, followed by Mookie. Mookie's problem is that price is so hard to get to. 0.1. So Bellinger's the priority, followed by Muncy, Mookie. Then you have Turner and Peterson. I would put close. And I actually think Pollock would be right in there too. I think Pollock is actually, his numbers look like he's actually hitting the ball better than it might even show up. And it's actually showed up pretty well. He's homered, 4 times in the last 8 games, and he actually didn't play in 2 of those, didn't start in 2 of those games. So Pollock's starting to get it together again. And people got to remember a couple years ago when this guy was healthy, he's been hurt for a while, and this little break gave him extra time. He was one of the best, 25, 35 players in baseball. So with Pollock in there, I think he might be the other guy we could start owning a little bit more at 3.2K. So I'm into the Dodgers stack very much tonight. And I never mind Kike as a long shot home run upside guy at the bottom of the order. I mean, no one plays him as a part of the Dodgers stack even. And just this whole stack is definitely stackable. Chris Taylor is my least interest along with Austin Barnes.
Well, and don't forget also, it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility that Corey Seager comes back today. I mean, his had
comes back, then I love the Dodgers stack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not listing him as the in the initial lineup, but I mean that's because he didn't play yesterday, right? So apparently he had an MRI or something on his back, which is fine. He sat out yesterday. Certainly he could come back, and if he does come back, especially if they announce him late,
I wouldn't be surprised to see him pinch hitting tonight. I'm sorry, DHing. His back has been a sort of an issue in the past a little bit, and I've seen this with Seager for a while, so it does worry me a little bit, that he would come back. But if he does come back, I all about him. Let's load him up.
So your favorites would be Bellinger and
Bellinger's number 1, and Muncy and Betts would be the spend ups that are very close at number 2. And I would probably rate Muncy just because he gets the infield eligibility and is a little cheaper. Even though I like Betts better. But then Pollock would be my next guy, followed by Turner and Peterson.
I was just going to say that Muncy always being eligible for first and second base makes life so much easier with him,
It does. Although, what's funny is this year, against all odds, for some reason, the second basemen have just been hitting home runs like crazy all on the same nights. So it's been strange, and it makes it hard when to pay 5.3. The great thing about him usually is that you can usually get a guy like him there, and nobody else is even close. But now this year, there's better second basemen.
Okay. Last game of the day, Oakland against Oakland against the Angels.
Yeah, I don't buy that these lineups are real because we'll have to see what happened after the brawl with Oakland.
What do you mean?
They had a brawl.
Oh, you mean these line? Oh, okay. Oh, so you think there are gonna be suspensions and stuff?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe, it might be long ones.
Well, let me ask you something. I mean, I wasn't planning on getting to too much Tehran, but are they going to have no one play? Have no good hitters going for Oakland? I mean,
I don't know who they're going to have. To be honest with you, it's a good question. It's interesting we're speculating, but I don't think you could play Tehran. And he's not going to pitch any innings. I mean, I don't think he is. He pitched 2 innings in his first start.
And did these guys brawl each other yesterday?
I believe it was them. I don't know. Actually, wasn't paying attention to baseball much as much.
So I mean, is it possible that Trout, and Rendon gets suspended?
No, I don't remember. I don't even remember who they played yesterday. Honestly, that's
okay.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean,
so here's a guy, by the way, who's not that bad. Another one. It's so funny. So many takes out of the Angels. That Angels Mariners stack games. Who's not that bad? I think he had to sit out for you. Just heard a little bit. This Joe Adele is not that bad for the Angels. he has a lot of energy. He had a good swing, and he had a good game. And I think he sat out or whatever. But he's the guy I'm just going to keep my eye on at 3K. But I really had not a lot of interest in this game at all, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, I like a few bats on the A's, even though I like Manaea in general. Trout being the priority if you can get him. Rendon next. Upton just behind him. Actually, Upton might be an actual priority play at 3.3.
Really?
I know he's struggling, but I'm going to take the lifetime of lefty crushing to so that he can still hit home runs. And he's actually looked a little bit better at the plate, but just in terms of being disciplined lately. But he's 3.3K. It's just massive power upside. I think playing a guy who's hit a few hundred home runs over a guy who's never hit a home run at the same price is more the route I'd go.
See now these are the takes that you get when you listen to Sheets. So the Joe Adele is not that bad. I want to read this to you. This is the DraftKings.
0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts.
0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, and also committed a 4-base error that allowed a run to score. And hold on. He was also 2 for whatever with all 4 times he came to the plate. Now and he allowed a fly ball to bounce off his glove and over the outfield wall. This is the guy that I want to lock into my lineups. Nonetheless, 133 average, 0-0. Not that bad. That's going to be my comment.
Watch him hit a weird home run tonight. Play Taylor Ward. Play BJ Justin Upton. I mean, don't play too much Joe Adele.
Sounds good.
You want to real quick go through the pitchers? I'm just going to read through my favorites at the end, and we can get out of here.
Yeah, and then we'll do a little of again my favorite pitchers, and then we'll do if you wouldn't mind doing some one-offs in a second.
Yeah, let's do that.
So my favorite pitchers again in I guess in order. I think tied at the top for me are Corbin and McCullers, and then tied in the second spot is Dustin May and Robbie Ray. I would go down to Gibson next, but I think it's gonna be too popular. I would prefer to use Matz or Keuchel instead of Gibson as my next option.
Yeah. Hold on, why do I have this one guy in here? I think that what I'm going to do is go I'm going to have Corbin the most. McCullers and Gibson will be close behind him, and then Dustin May just behind them. I'm going to wait to see what some ownership is, but that's what I've got right now. And then Robbie Ray is just beneath him. So that's my 5 guys mainly. I'll throw in a little Keuchel, Gray, Dobnak, but that's pretty much the 5 guys I'll be using. Okay, so for me, as far as some one-offs goes, just guys that I mentioned that whatever. Some of them are actually going to come out of this Arizona game, actually. I mean, I don't know the 8-hole, but Jake Lamb at 2,700. We talked about Robbie Grossman from the A's game is not bad. Stewart, I mentioned before. Escobar coming from the Arizona game. Guy you mentioned Yandy Diaz from Tampa. Yeah. Yeah, 3,300. Go back to CJ Krohn. You mentioned Candelario at 2,400. I'll reiterate that one. And then I'm telling you, a lot of these Arizona guys. I'm not playing Miles Straw. He's probably a good point per dollar. But are these your one-offs or your?
Yeah, these are one-offs too. You know what I mean? Like these are they just look really, really cheap. All these guys. Yeah, for the guys who I have is drastically underpriced. Yeah. That I'm on to Jake Lamb. I agree. Take a shot there. Escobar, Yandy, Krohn, Candelario, Mazzara, Peralta, Calhoun. That's a lot of Arizona, man. Yeah, I mean, those are the cheap guys, though. That's what I was saying. They definitely stand out as being too cheap. But I don't need to play them. I mean, if I play them, I don't need to stack them anyway. And I could stack them still and get them with the Dodger stack or something that might be lower owned. It's going to make it really hard for people not to stack them. I really think once people start actually building lineups, they're going to realize that. And I bet you, I would do this on the screen, but I can't. I'm telling you, if I ran just like a random optimal, I bet you they would end up in like 100% alert. Yeah, it's hard because like they're once you play one of them, it just makes sense to play the other. Like it starts to add up real quick. So just that's all I'm saying is that I don't know if you want to play a full stack, but getting 2 of those guys on your lineups or having one player from Arizona on each of your lineups is still probably fine. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to mention, maybe like 2 things. First of all, with respect to FanDuel, my pitchers are pretty much the same. I was going to tell you that. I like McCullers and Corbin right at the top, the same. And then May and Robbie Ray, again, not a real difference. I actually like Manaea better than Gibson actually on FanDuel. He's much cheaper over there.
Yeah.
And one pitcher I just wanted to mention again, and we talked about stacking the Dodgers. I did want to reiterate, okay. He's not even starting. That's so funny. I thought that they were going to be starting Garrett Richards again.
No, I think it's Perdomo.
Okay, because Garrett Richards again, like he can't get a break. I mean, they either have him playing against the Dodgers or in Colorado. I mean, I'm gonna be playing him again. Just he needs any matchup aside from those. Literally anything except for those two.
Any free agent who signed in the National League West in the offseason is really pissed off because now you play everybody in division basically a bunch of times. So
right.
You're going to have like half your games against the Dodgers and in Coors, which is like horrible.
He's like, when can I play San Francisco again, please?
Yeah, seriously. But I am going to say that my favorite stacks, Dodgers. I like the mini stacks from the Arizona Colorado game just because it's the one way to differentiate that I try to do. The White Sox I like, and I like mini. I like one or two Houston stacks, but I'm not going to focus on that one.
My favorite stacks on DraftKings are going to be probably the Dodgers. That's just the best, aside from like the opposites. So it'd be Arizona, my favorite stack, and then after that would be the Dodgers, and then on FanDuel, pretty much the same, really. I mean, the Dodgers. Here's what I want to ask you though. Like I counted on Garrett Richards being a starting for San Diego. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're making this a bullpen game. Are we worried about them? I'm not saying we're worried about this. What I was going to say is, can we play more righties from the Dodgers? Because we don't know who they're going to be bringing in. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, but the Dodgers righties aren't as good as. I mean, I think it's just overthinking. Like I think with the Giants, it was because they were going to have the lefties in the bullpen with the guys sandwiched the way they were. It was going to open up Betts and Turner, who, by the way, did hit a home run in two of the games, I think, or at least two big games. But I don't think it's going to be the same thing necessarily in this situation. You will have some of both these guys are probably going to go. And again, I don't like to stack generally against bullpen games. I'm okay with the Dodgers at home.
Few things again just to keep in mind in this slate is that Robbie Ray and Patrick Corbin, and for that matter, Lance McCullers, right? You mentioned that like Lance McCullers does not look that good,
Yeah.
All three of those guys just have risk. You know what I mean? Like Corbin can get wild, Robbie Ray can get wild, and
for safety, you're playing. For safety, you're mostly. I guess if you're saying if you're going to play if you're going to play cash, I think that you probably want to start your lineups out with Gibson and Gibson and what's his name? Why can't I think of his name for some reason?
Dustin May?
No, I get the mix. I get Robbie Ray and what's his name mixed up all the time because they were on the same team. Corbin. And they were both. So, but I meant to say, but I think Corbin and Gibson would be your cash game starters.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Except for just to remind you guys that when the optimal lineup has Justin Dunn in it, you're all going to be Justin Dunn and who's that guy from the Angels? I said it's going to have
Joe Adell
and Justin Dunn. That's gonna win all the cheese.
That's your wild card one for the day. I'll just take in that same game. I'll say Justin Upton's gonna hit a home run today.
Sounds good to me.
All right, guys. Hey, for Sheets, I'm Bobby saying we'll see you at the top of the leaderboards. Thanks for hanging in there with us.